Hey everyone, welcome to EverydayFI, the show that explores the lives and stories of everyday people in the financial independence community. Today we're back with part 2 of Darren and Jolene's story. Hopefully everyone having fun over in Spain, including myself, I should be there by now, has met them and been lucky enough to enjoy their company. I know I have. In today's episode, we get to explore Darren and Jolene's post-FI life, specifically their nomadic lifestyle and all the different types of adventures they get to go on. Many of these actually include hiking incredible trails like the Camino in Spain, so make sure to tune in to learn how you can become semi-nomadic and hike all the time after we hear from our sponsors. What does post-FI look like for you? I know you mentioned travel, but what's like your day-to-day and what's up next for you guys?
I say half the year we spent here in Kansas. We purchased a house in 2022. It's 1,000 square feet, built in 1905. We've gutted it and we've put it almost all back together. We're 95% done with it since 2022. Just what took us 2.5 years.
A little more than 2 years
Yeah.
being here less than half the time. But yeah, that's our project for now anyway, while we're in Kansas. One of the things that we also have is some farmland where I mentioned that we enjoy hunting and recreating, but it's also a place where we create wildlife habitat and do a lot of work for conservation on the property. So spend a bit of time doing that. When we're not in Kansas, we are either in the Caribbean or Europe. So far over the last several years, we'll probably venture out further from that, South America, Southeast Asia, other areas of the world in the not too distant future. But for now, we've been doing a lot of long distance hiking in Europe. So it started by doing the traditional Camino de Santiago route across northern Spain. We became addicted to long distance hiking. And since then, we do 2 to 4 months, 5 months of hiking through Europe each year. So over the last 4 years, I guess since 2021.
Yeah.
No, 3 years.
3 years.
2021, we've covered about 5,000 kilometers, so around 3,000 miles by foot, carrying our backpacks. Mainly Spain, Portugal, France, a bit in Germany, and Italy.
And coming up in 2025, we're doing a hike from the south of Spain to the north of Spain. That's 1,000 kilometers. And then probably one in the fall of 2025 that'll be between 500 and 750
across southern
kilometers.
France.
Yeah, that's incredible. I know some people who do that on the Appalachian Trail and the PCT, of course. There's that famous book.
Wild.
Yeah. And then everybody wanted to do it and then realized it's really hard.
Yeah.
And my partner laughs at people like that because he's like, okay, from somebody who is an actual backpacker, you can't just wake up one day and do that. Like you have to train because you're carrying all your stuff on your back. So is that the type of hiking you're doing?
We're not carrying a tent and we take minimal food, some snacks or a sandwich for the day or whatever. And sometimes enough water to get you through the day, but usually there's some place to refill your water bottle partway through the day. Where somebody on an AT or Pacific Crest Trail is probably, they're carrying all that stuff for days, days worth of food and probably water, and sleeping on the ground and no showers. That's not for us. At the end of the day, we want a bed, a hot shower, and some cooked food. And so fortunately in Europe, there's hundreds or thousands of routes where you can do that. You're hiking from town to town, and because the towns are so much closer together. And, so on some of these main routes, like the Caminos, there's a lot of lodging that is specifically set up for pilgrims, for hikers. Other areas fall on routes that are not as popular, so they don't have the number of people. They may not have the albergues and so forth. So we're staying at Airbnbs or small hotels or even monasteries, convents, things like that. But there's still a bed and a shower and food every night.
So we're carrying usually 48-liter backpacks, carrying 15 to 20 pounds, 3 outfits. It's a pretty minimalist pack. So the longest trip we did was 71 days. We usually take one rest day once a week. One thing we've realized, there's more trails than what we will have time for. I think one thing that really keeps us coming back is you meet really interesting people from all walks of life, walking while they're thinking about what they're wanting to do with their second half of life.
Yeah, it's really interesting people out there. Like most normal people don't put on a backpack and go hike for weeks or months at a time. So
Yeah.
you just meet some of the most interesting people in the world.
Yeah, I must be an abnormal person because I'm like, sign me up for this. Okay,
Yeah.
because I want to know more. Okay. I have so many questions. First, if you want to do this, what resources are out there that tell you which trails to go if you want to do this kind of hiking, like the hike to where you have a bed at the end of the night and you can just do the 48-liter pack and not have to carry everything with you? What resources?
Yeah, the definitive English guidebooks are called Cicerone. They're guidebooks that are written by various English speaking writers. It's based out of the UK, but you can get these off of Amazon. They probably have over 200 books easily. If people want to look online and see some sample itineraries, there's 2 websites. One's called Camino Ways, and the other one is called Max Adventure. And those are companies that if you don't want to plan your own trip, we plan all of our own trips through these Cicerone guidebooks. But if you want to sample it for a week or 2 weeks, they have very nice itineraries. They only have a 15% upcharge versus DIY. So you're not egregiously overpaying for anything to sample it. So if anyone wants to do, that's what I would recommend, using Camino Ways or Mac Adventures. And there's several other companies, but those are the ones that are the most popular. You're going to have the route, it will be known to you, where you're going to stay will be known to you, and they will inform you of where to get food, but you're on your own.
Yeah, some other resources would be find a Facebook group for a particular route. Once somebody has an idea what route they want to do or general route, then find a Facebook group, and there'll be a lot of resources within there too about the path or the individual accommodations or time of year, stuff like that.
Okay. And so what level of fitness do you think people need for this? Like, how many miles are you putting down a day to actually get to a bed?
I like the sport because I'm late onset into athleticism. I would say you start just with walking and then you put on a pack and you start adding weight and get up to the weight that you think you'll carry, which is between 13 and 20 pounds.
Yeah, somebody doing this should definitely train some before. And that just means putting in steps or some miles, and preferably at least before you go with a backpack with the amount of weight that you're going to carry. But, there have been people roll off the couch and go do this, but it's going to be painful, but even if you're.
Yeah, recovery's hard, y'all. It's very hard.
Yeah. And even if you're trained, meaning you've put in the steps and the miles or whatever, there's still going to be some pain because most people are typically walking 4 to 8 hours a day on these hikes. And so if you're at a job or doing something else and you're only training on the weekends or in the evenings, you're not getting in 4 to 8 hours repetitively every day after day. And that's what you do on these trails is you head out in the morning, you walk 4 to 8 hours, and you do it again the next day. So even if you're well prepared, there's still going to be some pain during the first week to 2 weeks. And then you kind of get used to it. But proper training, I don't know, you could probably start a month ahead of time and be well prepared.
Yeah.
Okay. And how many miles is average between the towns?
Yeah, so we are typically shooting for about 12 miles or 20 kilometers. We usually end up doing a little more like 20 to 25 per day. So around 14 miles or so. Some people will go as far as 30 to 40 kilometers a day.
We would do 30 if it's flat.
Yeah, if it's not rough, if there's not a lot of elevation change, 30s, and we're right around 50 years old. And I wouldn't say we're super athletic. We're average.
Yeah.
And there's people out there well into their 70s doing this.
We're by far the youngest. When we are there, which is a spring and in the fall, we're the youngest.
Usually, yeah.
During the summer, you'll find a lot more younger people. So if you're in your 20s, 30s,
Yeah.
you'll find a lot of companionship in your age range in the summer. But in the spring and fall are people
More
taking sabbaticals or retiring.
retirees, traditional retirees. And so it's not uncommon to be, hiking with somebody who's, 65, 70 years old, and they're carrying their gear and covering, 15 miles a day.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. Because I think my max right now, I don't know. I feel like I could probably surprise myself because I hiked a 14er, a mountain that's over 14,000 feet. And the majority of them, I believe, are in Colorado. And so I hiked to the top of Mount Elbert, which is the second highest peak in the lower 48 with zero training. Now, I had a backpack, but it was like maybe 10 pounds. It wasn't very heavy. And we did it, I think it was about 11 miles there and back. And we started at, I want to say 6:30 in the morning, and we got back around 4:30. So it was like 10 hours. And I did it. It was rough. But that's like hiking up a mountain. So that's different. We went from, I think the bottom was 9,000 feet. And so it's 5,000 feet of elevation gain in a 10-hour period. And so like huffing and you can't breathe. I had my little oxygen tank, which I will say that did nothing. I'm sorry. Like it really didn't. I think I took a puff and I could do 5 steps, and then I did a puff and I just had it ran out, and I was like, I guess that's gone. Yeah. Has there ever been a time where you didn't make it to the town in time? Like it was dark and you were hiking through the dark, or anything like that? Have you heard any stories about that? That's my biggest fear, is that I don't have the stamina to get there in time, and it's like dark and things are coming at me or something.
Had a couple of days that turned out to be longer than we expected.
Yeah.
Just we were slower, or the route was a little bit longer than we calculated, and we've gotten in evening, like 6 or maybe 7 might have been the latest we've gotten in, but it's never been dark. The thing is, there's almost always a backup plan of a taxi
or bus
or train.
We know where those are. We went 3 years we completed everything. But then when we were in Italy this spring, they had unusual, good for them because they had a drought, but they had a lot of rain. And still in late February and early March, there was lightning. So we're not going to walk through lightning in exposed areas. We're not going to walk and another day was sleet and some small hail. So we're not going to walk in that either. So we did use the train to skip, we found the next train station and skipped the lightning and hail. Well,
yeah, you can adjust. You can skip ahead or change your reservations, just wait a day. And
there's no police out there telling you why.
Yeah, no trail police that dictate you stay on a schedule and you must walk through the sideways rain and stuff like that. No.
Yeah, I guess it's the way I'm imagining is that these trails are like out in the middle of nowhere. And so there aren't any buses or taxis or anything, but it doesn't sound like that's what they are.
At times you do go through some remote areas, and there may be some days, depending on what route you're doing and our country, there will be times that you may pass through one town middle of the day, and some days you may not go through any, but you'll reach a town at the end of the day. But it does take a little bit of planning.
Yeah, the guidebooks are really this Cicerone organization's really good at telling you, like, you do not leave this village without 2 liters of water and
Some food or
some a sandwich. You just don't. And they have in Spain where we do a lot of our hiking, they have apps to where you can contact the police and they can find you. So, yeah.
Take a flare gun.
Yeah.
And if you follow one of the more major routes, like the main Camino to Santiago routes, there's many other hikers out there as well. For example, the primary route going across northern Spain, about 500,000 people do that per year. Not necessarily the whole distance, but about 500,000 will complete it. So their starting point may only be 5 or 7 days out, or it may be 35 days out, but that gives you an idea of just how many hikers are out there at any given time.
And another thing we really like about these trails, we could go on for like another hour or so, is
No,
that
please do. I love this. I have more questions, so please do.
in these, like this route that we're going to do next year, you're walking on Roman roads. You're seeing the milestones that are 2,000 years old. A lot of these smaller cities have amazing museums that you can go to. The towns are small, it's inexpensive, the food is wonderful, but you're actually like out walking in history. Yeah, there's no queues to these museums. You can get right in. They're often like $3 to $5 to get in.
Yeah, it's really cool to be walking through, places like this, 1,000-year-old churches, or Jolene said, walking on the stones that the Romans laid down. The depth of history is amazing. You're walking past all this stuff and great food. And it's interesting because you go through different regions, just even that route across northern Spain, you go through 3 different areas. You start out in Basque country in northeast Spain. You go through the Meseta, which is ironically a bit like Kansas, wide open spaces of agriculture and some amazing red wines. And then you end up in Galicia, where it's rainy and mossy, and there's a lot of Celtic influence. So just in that distance, you experience differences in the language, the food, the topography, all in that short distance. And you'll find that all over Europe.
Yeah. And we would meet several people who were in between jobs, or when we did the first one in 2020, people had lost their jobs. Or one thing I often see people like posting about in various FI communities is, what am I going to do next? I highly recommend taking any one of these routes or walking for an amount of time, because you start to see in the world like possible jobs. Like you walk through a village, you're like, okay, I've walked through 10 of these villages. Every village has this type of person doing a vital role in their community. If we ever needed to go back to work to do something, we have a list of a bunch of different things that we could do just by seeing people living their day-to-day lives in different countries as well as your own country. Because we do, walk around this town a lot to get ready for our trips, but you see things differently. Like it really forces you to slow down.
It also gives people a lot of time to think. And so that's why a lot of people do these pilgrimages too, is just for a bunch of quiet time to get inside their head and either evaluate their life looking back or forward or both. And, so some people are out there for religious reasons, others for the physical aspect, some for just the adventure, but a lot are out there for self-reflection. And because, spending the 4 to 8 hours, if you're by yourself or walking silently with the other person that you're with, gives you a lot of time to think.
Yeah, for sure. So Jolene, are one of those jobs that you have listed Barnes and Noble?
Yeah.
Is this something that somebody could do if they took a 2-week vacation to Europe and could do this? Because, a lot of people listening may not have retired yet and may not even be on a sabbatical.
Yes,
Okay. And so do
absolutely.
you have any routes that you would recommend for somebody to do that if they have a week or two to do?
Yeah, if they had one of the routes that is not this main route across Spain that we see more people taking is going from Porto to Santiago de Compostela. That's about
12 days.
12 days. So it's easy to fly from North America into Porto, do the walk, get a bus or train back, and go home.
Yeah.
There's a route in France that is near Lyon. So a person can fly into Lyon, take a train. It's a Le Puy-en-Velay to
Is it-
Col, which is one of the oldest Romanesque structures in the world. It's a beautiful village of 300 people or so. That's 12 days or so. That's a very popular one. Rural France, very rural. You'll see more cows than people.
One thing that a lot of people will do is pick one of the longer routes and do it over multiple years. So we've known several people that, it might take them 4 years or 5 years or whatever, a week at a time. And so that's their vacation. Their, brothers get together or sisters get together. And each year they're going to go walk another week worth. They do that. And then next year they pick up where they left off. And eventually they completed the whole route. I think for people considering doing this, some of the main things to consider are, what are they looking for? Are they looking to do a route for religious reasons, or are they doing it for the camaraderie? So if they want camaraderie, probably do that main route across northern Spain and you'll meet lots and lots of people. If you want solitude, then there's other routes for that. We did this one route down through Italy this past spring and you end in Rome. So it really depends on what the person is, what they're looking for individually.
Yeah, and I think if they have a week or 2 weeks, I'd again direct folks to that Camino Ways organization or Max Adventure. They have a lot of 6 to 15-day treks. And yeah, even though we haven't booked through them, we look to get ideas, and we did that this spring. We have 14 days here. We don't want to walk a full route, but what are some of the places that have a lot of highlights and the things that we like? Because we like food and wine. So we're walking through a lot of wine regions, which are often rolling hills, which is the type of topography that we like.
I'm so into this. When this episode's over, I'm definitely going to be talking to my partner and be like, "Do you know about this? We should do this, man."
You don't have to sleep on the ground.
Yeah. Oh my God. And he's so funny. He loves camping. I hate camping. I'm sorry, but I am not pooping in a hole. I don't want to do that. I need plumbing.
Yeah.
I need plumbing. The bed, not so much. It's the plumbing for me. Thank you for going on that tangent with me. I think that's going to be really valuable to people who are listening to this, because I have heard about a lot of different kinds of travel. I've never heard of this. I did not know that this was an option. I thought through hiking was you had to sleep in a tent. So I'm super excited about this. And I think other people who are listening probably are too.
You're asking about 2 weeks. Where should I travel? What's a route? What's my first route that I should do? One of them could be in Alsace, France, because you have access to trains and buses, lots of transportation, and it is beautiful scenery. You can pick from a flat route or a very hilly route. Yeah, those are the young ladies. She did some work with Rick Steves on these hikes. So
I love Rick Steves. I love Rick Steves. One of my favorite vacations ever was when I was 17 with my mom. We went to Ireland and we went to Paris, and the whole trip was a Rick Steves trip. And it was fantastic. I have not even been able to recreate that trip. It was so good. Yeah. Rick Steves is one of my favorite travel guides ever. It's too bad. So she got his book for Ireland when I was 17. That was 20 years ago, right? Yeah. Definitely out of date. But the funny thing is a lot of stuff isn't, because
Yeah.
Ireland is a very rooted in very old history.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are still the same, but then there's new things, like different people own different pubs now or things like that. But yeah, I love Rick Steves.
Yeah.
So that's great. Okay, so we're towards the end of our time, and what I usually like to do with folks is talk about current struggles or challenges that you're going through right now and current wins.
Yeah, what mine first, because it's a short one, is that doing these routes, you meet other people that have done other routes, and I might have mentioned it earlier. There's so many places that we want to go. We really need to prioritize them.
Yeah. So along to talk about that a little bit more, we keep a running list of places we want to visit, activities we want to do. And some of that we've kind of broken down into 5 or 10-year periods of time. So we think about these are our go-go years. And at some point we'll hit our slow go years and then no-go. So we've got a window now that fits for this through hiking and other physical activities. And we'll try to maximize that. But we keep a running list of countries and places that we want to go. So we just continue to keep that updated.
We did have one thought, another slightly different topic around the 4% rule.
Yeah. So I would say, I don't know if it's really a challenge or something we're struggling with, but we're currently psychologically as well as practically looking at shifting from using the 4% rule as our guidance to a more detailed retirement plan where we follow a podcast and some guys that advocate for setting aside a certain amount of money for your minimum dignity floor. So making sure your future self has basic needs all covered, whether that's money you've set aside or in guaranteed income, such as Social Security or pension. So once you know your future self is covered, then you can be more confident in spending on fun things now. And so we're currently in the process of doing that. So we've had a couple of friends from the FI community have had their plans developed by these guys, recommended them. So now we are right in the middle of that process where we share with them all of our assets and our goals and stuff. And then they will help guide us on, how much do we set aside versus how much we can spend on fun and travel now.
Yeah, so it's project based. Like we're paying them one time for a project to develop a retirement plan. Because one, I highly recommend, just our humble experience. We're not financial advisors or anything, but live off the 4% rule for the first couple of years and really understand what your day-to-day costs are in the place that you think that you're going to be living. Or if you're nomadic, how much you're spending from 1 or 2 years of being nomadic, then okay, this kind of life is probably my baseline. And have someone do a plan that puts in, because as we enter our 50s, Social Security feels a little more solid. We do have some small pensions. So helping us think about, are we underspending now, knowing that we live in a low cost of living area? We have a good idea what it costs to live in a rural area now. Yeah, just to make sure that we don't keep postponing activities. Like you said, live in our go-go years and not save too much for the no-go years.
Yeah, we aren't big on leaving a legacy. And so we subscribe to the concept of die with zero. So we don't want to leave life left unlived. The money's there for a purpose. But at the same time, we don't want to burn through all of our assets in our 50s and not have enough in our 60s, 70s, or even our 90s. And so I think this approach will help us feel more confident in that. So the 4% rule has been our guidance for these first 4 or 5 years, and I think it's worked great for us. But I think this other approach will psychologically give me more confidence knowing that what we're spending now isn't jeopardizing our future.
Yeah, and that's really smart. And I think something that is a great idea for anybody who's entered retirement, whether or not it's early or not, to make sure that you're set up for those no-go years, because that's where the medical expenses are really high. And you might even have to have like nursing care and things like that, which is just ridiculous in this country. So who did you use to make that plan? Is it somebody specific? Is it like just a family advisor, or was there like a group?
So the folks that do the podcast, the retirement and IRA show, and another one that's adjacent to that is Roger Whitney's podcast. At the Retirement Answer Man.
Answer Man.
Okay. I will link those in the show notes.
And we find ourselves naturally in more of these traditional retirements, like online communities, and listening to those podcasts, kind of thinking or anticipating, seeing stories, what other people are dealing with for aging parents. And like you said, the actual costs that people are seeing as they're getting their bills from family members or, taking over financial things for their parents, if that comes to be.
Yeah, Jolene, you made a comment earlier about using the 4% as a guidance the first couple of years. And I think that's actually really helping us work with Jim and Jim's team in putting together this other plan, because the gentleman we're working with did make a comment the other day that many of their clients are more traditional retirees, and they build their plan a couple or a few years before they actually traditionally retire. And so they don't know what their future lifestyle costs are going to be. Just like I mentioned back in 2020, we didn't know what our future living expenses were going to be. And so having a couple of years of experience before developing this kind of a plan is probably really valuable. Whether the 4%'s a 3.5 or 4.5 or 5 or whatever, it's a guidance, and live it for 1 or 2 years and figure out what your new lifestyle is going to cost is immensely valuable.
Yeah, for sure. And it's especially interesting that you can change this percentage based on market returns. It's amazing that, everybody's like, 4% rule. And I'm like, no, it can be like 4% 1 year, 3.5 1, 5 1. It doesn't have to be 4% forever. It's just the average. Yeah. But that's really smart. Okay. So what are y'all's wins right now that you want to talk about?
We're nearing completion on the renovation of our house in Kansas, though I think this coming year we'll be working on landscape and we'll find other projects to do. But it'll be nice to bring some closure to this project. It's been fun, but it's also nice to see it wrapping up.
I think another win, it's actually come out of our conversation today, is that people are putting travel in their plans in early retirement. I see a lot of people posting about, I want to go here because it's inexpensive. Having been in a lot of rural places and expensive countries, I would say there's a lot of space to geo arbitrage a trip. Let's say, for example, you want to go to France. Now, if you want to be in the cities, that's the most expensive way to do it. But you can go to what we would call a second tier or third tier city, and it's a lot less expensive. And you're a traveler or tourist in an area that doesn't get a lot of travel. So you're automatically interesting to people. And if you can speak some of the local language, you'll have amazing conversations with the people or their kids or their grandparents. Yeah, so we spend very little amount of time on our travels in big cities. We typically try to get out to towns that are like, 100,000 or less, or even villages of 2,500 or so. Yeah, because you're more likely to interact with people. I'm kind of circling back to what you said about the Rick Steves travel is, people are very helpful everywhere. And I think even more so in rural areas because their pace of life is a lot slower.
Yeah. So you kind of equate it to traveling in the US, whether if you're going to New York, Chicago, or San Francisco or LA or whatever, versus going to a, 40,000 person town. The costs are significantly less in the smaller towns. The pace of life is more relaxed. You can get more personal with people. So it's the same in these other countries. Paris is great, but after a day or two, it's pretty nice to get out to the countryside. Rome was amazing for a few days, but the Tuscany hillsides and countryside was so much more relaxing and cheaper. So I'd just say, consider that if people are looking for international travel, or I guess even travel within their home country.
Yeah, so that's like a win and a life hack combination. But I'm still going to ask you guys to leave us with a life hack recommendation and learning before we sign off here.
We have done 95% of the work ourselves on renovating this house, all thanks to YouTube. There are amazing people in midlife doing amazing content without a lot of fluff.
You can learn just about anything on YouTube or find a video for how do I replace, how do I fix, how do I build, you name it. And somebody's got a video out there for it.
So our house, the only thing that is original is the exterior and the walls.
Yeah.
We replaced all the interior, all the floor. We built our own cabinets. There's so many wonderful people, and they have 10,000 followers. There's some amazing content out there. Yeah.
Who is it? So I could put it in the show notes if you remember.
Well, my favorite one is Vancouver Carpenter. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. He does a great job, especially on drywall. So he's a great instructor. So that would probably be the number one we've gone to.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So did you do the plumbing and electrical too? Like plumbing, I feel like it's probably not so bad, but electrical scares me. I feel like I would electrocute myself.
Yep. We've done everything from the circuit panel inward. So we had the new circuit panel put in, but we've done all the interior wiring.
So did you have to get like permits to do this work yourself, or did you just not bother to do that?
So in this county, you do need a permit, or you can't run the wire from the main line to the panel yourself. But if we were to rent this place out, then we would need to have an inspection.
If it was going to be commercial of any sort, for private residence, we don't.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm asking is because whenever I have work done on my house, it's like every single thing needs a permit. And I don't have to do that. It's always the workers who do that. And I've only had to pull a permit one time when I added a bathroom to the house because there was a certain kind of permit that Durham requires the homeowner to pull. And it was a pain in the butt to do that. And I was like, I have no desire to work on my own house for that reason, because it was like you had to fill out paperwork with a pen and mail it in. And I was like, what are we in 1994? Come on, y'all.
We had to get a permit in North Carolina to put in a rock patio, just a freestone patio. Had to get a permit. It was incredible.
Yeah. Durham is very strict. I'll just say that to the audience. Like Durham is a very strict city, and I half like that because then if work has been done, it's been done probably well, but it's also a pain in the butt.
Yeah, the county that we live in is 700 square miles, and are there even 30,000 people in the county? There's not even 30,000 people in the county. We had the house inspected, and that was his only appointment of the day because he had to drive 3 hours here, do the inspection, and turn and drive to go 3 hours home. So there's just not the infrastructure to do that. But yes, if you're running a hotel or you're doing this as an Airbnb or something, then yes, you need to have an inspection, but it's typically after the work. So
great. Well, thank you. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to bring up before we say goodbye?
I do. We do have a website called Dare to Draw Down. I haven't written much in the last year or so because we really, when we're home, which is when I would write on the website, focused on finishing this house. And there I do detail like day-to-day costs of a couple of the hikes that we did in 2022, 2023. I don't have any of this year's out because, again, we see the finish line. So that's our focus for the moment.
Yeah, so on the Dare to Draw Down website, we have a lot of stuff about through hiking and some of our travels, a bit about our downsizing and just our semi-nomadic lifestyle, and a bit on our drawdown strategy.
Then, yeah, folks are going to CampFIs in 2025. We will be at the one in Florida, week 1. We will be
Both weeks in Spain.
and we will be at Rocky Mountain week 1.
Yeah, so hopefully we can connect with some people while we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be in Spain for the second week. But I was lucky enough that Stephen and I texted him. I was like, please tell me you're going to open a second week. And he did. And he had me and my partner on the wait list. We got to secure our spot. We're very excited.
Wonderful. Look forward to meeting you there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for being on and sharing your stories. And this was really valuable. And I can't wait to do through hiking.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the EverydayFI podcast. If you're loving the show, here are some things you can do. Number 1, subscribe in your favorite podcast player and share the show with your friends and family. Number 2, please leave a review. I'm always looking for ways to improve the show. Number 3, check out my website, EverydayFI.com, where you can listen to all the episodes and leave comments for myself and the guest. Number 4, if you're interested in sharing your own financial independence story, you can find a submission form at everyday-fi.com/podcast. And finally, number 5, join my Patreon membership for only $5 a month at patreon.com/everydayfi-podcast. This is a one-woman show, so every little bit counts. See you next time as we continue to go down the path to financial freedom.